An 11-year-old just did something most grown men in this sport couldn't do. He looked grief straight in the eye. On the day the entire NASCAR world stopped to remember his father, and instead of hiding from it, he raced toward it. Brexton Busch didn't just post a tribute yesterday. He made a promise. And if you know anything about the Busch family, you know that promise is going to get tested every single lap of his career. Here's what happened. NASCAR officially declared August 18 as Kyle Busch Day. Why that date? Because 8 and 18 were the two numbers that define Kyle Busch's entire Cup Series legacy. The number 18 car carried him to 2 championships and 56 wins with Joe Gibbs Racing. The number 8 car was his final ride. The number he was driving for Richard Childress Racing when he passed away this past May. On that tribute day, his son Brexton, a young racer already carving his own path, posted an emotional message on Instagram. He talked about wearing the number 18 himself. He talked about wearing the number 18 himself. He talked about learning from his father. And he made it clear that every race from here on out carries his dad's name with it. To understand why this hit the NASCAR community so hard, you have to understand who Kyle Busch was. This wasn't a driver who quietly faded into retirement. He died suddenly last May in the middle of an active season after a routine illness spiraled into something nobody saw coming, pneumonia that escalated into sepsis. One of the most dominant, most polarizing, most respected drivers in modern NASCAR history was gone almost without warning. And Brexton wasn't just watching his father's career from the stands, he was living inside it. Kyle didn't just coach his son from a distance, he was hands-on working on the cars, calling races from the spotter stand, and even lining up against his own kid on short tracks. Number 8 versus the rising talent chasing his shadow. That's not a normal father-son dynamic in this sport. That's a direct transfer of knowledge, instinct, and pressure from one generation to the next. And now that transfer has to continue without the source. So when NASCAR carves out a day specifically built around Kyle's numbers, it isn't just nostalgia, it's the sport publicly acknowledging a hole that hasn't closed, and it puts Brexton in a spotlight most preteens never have to stand in. Let's break down what's actually happening here, because there's more going on than a heartfelt post. First, the psychological weight. Brexton isn't just grieving privately, he's grieving in public, inside a sport that never stops moving. Every time he's strapped into a car with an 18 or references his father, cameras are there. That's not something most kids his age are equipped to carry, and how he handles it now will shape how the racing world perceives him for years. Second, the competitive angle. Brexton openly admitted his father usually beat him when they raced head-to-head, but insisted the tide was about to turn. That's not empty talk from a kid. That's someone who trained under one of the most technically gifted, most fearless drivers of his era. If even a fraction of that instruction carried over, Brexton could be a serious threat as he climbs the ranks, assuming the mental side holds up under this level of public scrutiny. Third, the risk. Legacy pressure has broken young athletes before. Carrying a famous last name in racing is already a heavy weight. Carrying a deceased legend's number, his fan base's expectations, and a grieving sport's hopes all at once, that's an entirely different level of pressure. NASCAR history is full of promising young talents who cracked under far less. So is this smart or is this dangerous? Honestly, it's both. Leaning into his father's legacy gives Brexton built-in motivation, fan support, and a clear identity early in his career. But if results don't come quickly, or if the comparisons to Kyle become suffocating instead of inspiring, this same storyline could turn into a burden he never asked for. The reaction across the NASCAR community has been overwhelming and split right down the emotional middle. On one side, you've got fans calling this one of the most powerful tributes they've seen from a young athlete in any sport. People are pointing to Brexton's maturity, his willingness to speak openly about loss, and his commitment to keep racing rather than step away. On the other side, there's real concern. Longtime fans and analysts are asking the tougher question, is it fair to expect an 11-year-old to shoulder this kind of narrative? Grief is complicated enough without millions of people watching how you process it. Both reactions are valid, and both are going to follow Brexton every time he gets behind the wheel. So where does this go from here? Two scenarios. Best case, Brexton uses this moment as fuel. He develops into a legitimate talent. The Busch racing knowledge gets passed down successfully. And years from now, we're talking about him climbing into NASCAR's National Series, carrying his father's number with pride, not pressure. His story becomes one of the great redemption arcs in modern racing. Worst case, the spotlight becomes too much, too soon. Every mistake gets magnified because of who his father was. The comparisons never stop. Sponsors and media keep pushing the storyline harder than a young driver can handle, and instead of growing into his own identity, Brexton gets stuck being defined by a legacy he's still too young to fully process. Which path he takes depends less on raw talent and more on how the people around him, his team, his family, this sport, protect him while he grows. So here's the real question. Is this the beginning of one of NASCAR's great next generation stories, or is the sport putting too much on an 11-year-old's shoulders too soon? Drop your take in the comments. Do you think Brexton should lean fully into his father's legacy, or should he be given room to build his own identity first? If this broke down the story the way you needed, hit subscribe. SportsWire USA covers the moments in this sport that actually matter, not just the highlights.